All right, get ready, because today we are really going to dive deep into the Wizard Liz's Be Better or Stay Bitter.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this one.
Yeah, it's quite something. So this YouTube video, it's all about self-improvement,
hmm
but Liz, she does not mess around. I mean, right off the bat, she's like, listen, you need to figure out why you even want to change before you watch the rest of this thing.
It's a pretty bold way to start, I'll give her that.
Bold, yeah. I think it's smart, too, because it really makes you stop and think, like,
Yeah.
am I really ready to change, or am I just kind of, watching this for fun?
Right, exactly. It calls you out right away.
Totally. And then she just drops this bomb. She's like, 80% of people, they're happy when you have problems.
Oof.
Yeah, I know, right? Like,
Mm.
dang.
That's harsh, but, it gets your attention.
Oh, absolutely. And it kind of sets the tone for the whole thing, Like, this is not going to be your typical, like, fluffy self-help stuff.
No kidding. This is like get real or get lost kind of vibe.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're going to break down Liz's advice. We're going to see if this tough love approach, if it really holds up.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this unfolds.
Me too. So one of the first things Liz tackles is this thing we all do, dwelling on the past.
Ah, yes. The good old days, right? Or not so good, depending.
Right. But Liz is basically like, nope, the past doesn't exist. She says it's just a thought that's holding you back.
It's funny because a lot of self-improvement philosophies talk about that. Like letting go of the past to really be present.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? If you're constantly thinking about what happened before, you can't really focus on what's happening now. And it can also make you super anxious about the future.
Exactly. You're stuck in this cycle of what ifs and should have dones.
Right. And Liz, she tells the story. It's about these two guys who get into a car accident.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And one guy, he's just furious, complaining about his bad luck and everything.
I know the type.
Right. But the other guy, he's just grateful that nobody got hurt.
Hmm.
Same accident, but two totally different ways of seeing it.
That's a really great illustration of how our mindset shapes our reality.
Exactly. And it shows that we have a choice in how we react to things, even when they're bad.
But we always have a choice, even if it doesn't feel like it.
Totally. And so Liz then gives some practical steps to move on from the past. She talks about planning for the future, but she also really emphasizes forgiveness.
Forgiveness. That's interesting.
Yeah, she means both forgiving yourself for mistakes you've made and forgiving other people who've hurt you.
That's so important, but it can be so hard.
It can be, yeah. But she's saying that holding on to all that resentment, it just keeps you stuck in the past.
It's like dragging all that baggage around with you everywhere you go.
Exactly. And who wants to do that? So after all that, Liz gets into healthy lifestyles.
Yo, here we go. Time for the diet and exercise lecture.
Well, actually, no. She doesn't go there. You might think she'd be all about some crazy strict plan, but she's not.
Really? What does she say?
She actually advocates for starting small, like building sustainable habits instead of trying to overhaul everything at once.
That's what we know about habit formation, too. Those big, drastic changes, they rarely stick.
Right. It's like setting yourself up for failure. So she suggests things like squeezing in 10-minute workouts, walking more, cutting back on sugar slowly.
Those are great manageable steps that anyone can take.
Exactly. And she's big on adding more veggies to your meals, but doing it gradually.
It's all about those little wins that add up over time.
Totally. And, it's not just about looking good. It's about feeling good, too. When you take care of your body, your mind benefits as well.
Oh, absolutely. That mind-body connection is so powerful.
So true. And then Liz moves on to self-care, which, get this, she divides into inner and outer self-care.
Inner and outer. I've never thought of it that way.
Me neither, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We often think of self-care as like, bubble baths and face masks.
Yeah, the pampering stuff.
Right. But Liz is saying that taking care of your inner world is just as important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Addressing those deeper emotional needs.
Exactly. She even suggests getting professional help for things like acne or hair loss.
Interesting.
Yeah, like it's okay to seek expert support for those outer issues. But then she really gets into the idea of inner work, and she connects it to this concept of generational trauma.
Oh, wow. Generational trauma, that's a heavy topic.
It is, yeah. It's basically this idea that trauma experienced by, like, your parents or grandparents, it can actually be passed down and impact you today.
That's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is. And Liz seems to be encouraging people to, confront that trauma and try to heal from it.
That's such important work, but it can be really challenging.
For sure. And she actually has some pretty strong advice for single people.
Oh, what does she say?
She says, and I'm quoting here, Focus on healing before entering relationships to avoid bleeding on people who didn't cut you.
Whoa. Okay, that's a powerful image.
Right. It basically means, like, don't bring all your unresolved baggage into a new relationship.
Don't make someone else deal with your past hurts.
Yeah, it's about doing the work on yourself first, so you can show up as a healthy, whole person.
It's about being responsible for your own healing.
Exactly. So, from self-care, Liz takes this hard turn into the world of toxic relationships.
Ooh, that's always a tough one.
It is, and her approach, as you might guess, is pretty direct.
I'm all ears. What does she say?
She talks about recognizing that you have the power to choose how you respond to toxic people.
That's a good starting point. It puts you back in control.
Right, and she's all about conserving your energy and creating distance from that negativity.
That makes sense. Protecting your own well-being.
But, realistically, it's not always easy to just leave a toxic environment, especially for teenagers, like if they're stuck in a difficult family situation.
That's true. Her advice might sound a little simplistic in those cases.
Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution for sure. But then Liz moves on to the importance of seeking knowledge.
Always a good thing.
Right, and she's all about using books, podcasts, online resources, kind of like what we're doing right now, actually.
Huh? I was just thinking that. It's all about lifelong learning.
Exactly. Liz is basically like, don't just sit around complaining. Go learn something.
Take charge of your own growth.
Yes. And this is where her message starts to get really inspiring, I think. She talks about realizing your worth and refusing to settle for less than you deserve.
That's so important, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about what we should be, what we should have.
Right. And Liz, she tells this really compelling story about women who are treated like royalty by their partners.
Oh, wow.
And she contrasts that with the experiences of women who settle for less.
It's a stark comparison.
It is. And she's basically saying, if you don't believe you're worthy of respect and love, you're going to attract people who treat you accordingly.
You teach people how to treat you.
Exactly. So her advice for raising your standards, she says, be delusional.
Delusional. Okay, I need to hear more about this.
She wants people to have this unwavering belief in themselves, even if it feels crazy at first.
It's like that saying, fake it till you make it.
Kind of. She's a big believer in the power of positive affirmations and, like, manifesting your desires.
So she's saying that our thoughts can actually shape our reality?
That's exactly it. And she even shares her own experiences with using affirmations and, like, actually manifesting things she wanted.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff.
It is. And finally, her last piece of advice is so simple, but it really hits home. She says, watch your mouth.
Watch your mouth. What does that mean in this context?
She tells a story about a friend who was always putting herself down, talking negatively about her appearance.
Oh, I know people like that.
Right. And Liz basically told her to stop because those negative words were becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Ah, so it's about the power of our words to actually create our reality.
Exactly. If you're constantly saying negative things about yourself, you're more likely to believe them and act in ways that confirm them.
So it's about choosing words that uplift and empower us instead.
Yes. It's about recognizing that our self-talk has a huge impact on our experiences.
I love that. It's a simple but profound message.
It is. So in this first part of the video, Liz covers a lot of ground, from dealing with the past to the power of self-belief and even the importance of watching what you say.
It's a lot to take in, but it's definitely thought-provoking.
And it's just the beginning.
I can't wait to see what else she has to say in the rest of the video.
Me too.
Yeah.
We'll be back to unpack it all in the next part of our deep dive. Okay, so we're back, ready to dig even deeper into be better or stay bitter, Liz's style. It's definitely in your face.
No subtlety there.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But is it, like, actually effective? Does this tough love stuff work?
That's the big question, right? I think, honestly, there are good things and bad things about Liz's approach.
Let's break it down then. What do you see as, like, the positives of all this tough love?
Well, first off, you can't deny the motivation factor. Liz is, like, straight to the point. No sugarcoating, just what she thinks you need to hear, even if it's not what you want to hear.
It's like a slap in the face, but a helpful one.
Exactly. Sometimes you need that, especially if you're feeling stuck.
It's that kick in the pants to get going, right?
Yeah, like stop complaining and do something. And I bet that resonates with a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. But it's not just about the delivery, right? She actually gives real advice, concrete stuff.
Totally. She doesn't just say, be better, and leave it at that. There's a plan, steps you can take.
And a big part of that plan, I noticed, is taking responsibility. Like, She keeps saying you have the power to choose your thoughts, your actions.
That's huge in self-improvement. You can't control what happens to you, but you control how you react.
So Liz is saying, like, own your life. But isn't there a risk there? Like, putting too much blame on the individual?
Oh, absolutely. Because what about things people can't control, like systemic issues or, just bad luck?
Right. It's not always as simple as choose to be happy.
Exactly. And that's where Liz's approach can get tricky. Tough love, it's motivating for some, but for others, it can be alienating or even hurtful.
How so? Like, how could it be harmful?
Well, think about someone struggling with, let's say, depression. If you tell them to just snap out of it or be more delusional in their self-belief, that's not going to help.
Yeah, it could make them feel worse, like they're failing.
Right. Mental health is complex. What works for one person might not work for another.
So Liz's advice, it's not a universal cure-all.
And her stuff about toxic relationships, as good as it is in theory, could be a problem for some people too.
Like, we talked about how it's not always easy to just walk away from a bad situation, especially if you're dependent on those people.
Yeah, like family stuff. Or if you're afraid of what'll happen if you leave.
Setting boundaries is great, but sometimes it's just not that simple.
It's more nuanced, for sure. So with Liz's advice, we got to be critical. Think about individual situations.
It's not one size fits all, but one thing I do like is how much Liz emphasizes self-awareness. Like really looking at your thoughts and behaviors.
Oh, that's crucial.
Yeah.
If you don't know yourself, how can you change, right?
Exactly. And she talks about how powerful our words are, what we say to ourselves and to others.
That whole self-fulfilling prophecy thing?
Yeah.
If you keep saying negative stuff, you're going to start believing it.
So it's like choose your words carefully because they have an impact.
They really do. So, yeah, Liz can be a bit much, but she does have some good points, helpful stuff for self-improvement.
It's like take what works for you, leave the rest behind.
Exactly. There's no magic formula. Everyone's different.
What matters is finding what helps you grow, what helps you create the life you want.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, so we're back for the last part of our deep dive into Thewizardliz's Be Better or Stay Better. A lot to think about, that's for sure.
No shortage of tough love, that's for sure.
Not at all. But one thing that really stuck with me, it's this idea of raising your standards. Like Liz is basically saying, stop settling, you deserve better.
Yeah, it's about knowing your worth and not accepting anything less. In your relationships, your career, your health, everything.
She's like, expect more, demand more from yourself and from the world.
And that can be kind of scary, right? It's easier to just stay comfortable, even if it's not really what you want.
Oh, totally. But Liz's whole message is about pushing past that comfort zone, embracing the possibility of change.
She's like, change is tough, but it's worth it.
And I think she's right. This whole video, it's a call to action, basically. Like, you're not stuck. You have the power to create a better life for yourself.
But it takes work, right? It starts with your mindset, believing you can change, believing you deserve good things.
It's like taking ownership of your life. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Be Better or Stay Better, I want to ask you this. What's one thing inspired by Liz that you can do today to get closer to the life you want?
It doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it's just writing down a few things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
Or finally scheduling that doctor's appointment you've been putting off.
Or, setting a boundary with someone who's been bringing you down.
The point is, take that first step, even if it's small.
Because change, it's a journey, right? It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Exactly. There'll be ups and downs. But the important thing is to keep going. Keep learning, keep growing.
You got this. And hey, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been real. Hope you learned something.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into something interesting.
Always an adventure.